So today I am going to teach you how to read a birth chart in the standard of a circular chart like this. So these charts look very confusing to a lot of people because most are very freaked out by the lines and little speck marks, and people aren't really used to this. People prefer just a table chart telling you where your placements are, and they don't even look beyond that. They just see that their sun's in Capricorn, that's it, not realizing that their sun is in 29-degree Capricorn, which indicates another layer of analysis and more knowledge on your chart. So I like these type of charts better than table charts because to me this kind of conflates everything involved in astrology in one. You can understand how planets, signs, degrees, aspects, everything works in a very visual model. And so it's very easy. It's divided in 12 sections, each 30 degrees. 360 divided by 12 is 30. So each house should be roughly around 30 degrees. If not, that means that your chart is asymmetrical, and it indicates that you have a intersection and duplication happening somewhere. And to indicate that, you will just see a very big chunk in your chart. But this is very symmetrical. Every sign has its own house. It's assigned its own house. You don't see any of these lines hitting a sign twice. They all hit the signs once. So you're wondering, like, what are those lines? What do they represent? And these lines are your cusp lines, and they indicate the start of a house. So right here, this person's rising starts the 25th degree of Leo. This person's second house starts at the 13th degree of Virgo. And so knowing this, you can find out where your planet may fall, because even though your first house is ruled by Leo, having a Leo moon doesn't always indicate that your moon is going to fall in your first house. Such as this person's case, their moon starts in the second degree of Leo, which means that their moon is going to be in their 12th house, and that is manifested differently than your first house, if that makes sense. And then you see this person here has a lot of planets in the 5th house, and this indicates that there is a stellium energy, which means that there is a particular part of your chart that is highly emphasized, and that can be a good thing and that can be a bad thing. To me, stelliums are very neutral, I've noticed, but they also draw a lot of attention to a particular part of which the house rules. So for example, I have a stellium in the 1st house, and there has been overemphasis of identity in my life through having identity issues and just dealing with things related to the body and appearance. For this person, their energy is focused in the way that they create possibly family and children, kind of tied in with the 5th house. And yeah, I also think a little bit of romance as well involved in here. So those are possible themes relating to a 5th house stellium. More so also the way that your personality, the way that you project yourself. Because when you think about it, the sun rules the 5th house, and the sun is all about who you are and your vitality and what you stand for. So that is what that means. So yeah, the next part would definitely be these aspect lines. And just to kind of brief you over, these represent your planets. So this is your sun, this is your moon, Mercury's right over here, Venus, Mars, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and then this right here is your node. That represents your node, and that represents your Chiron, which is basically this is an asteroid, and this is a part of the moon related to the moon, the angle of the moon, which are your nodes. And this is your north node, and then your south node is always going to be opposite of this. So their south node is going to be in Cancer. They don't have this listed, but you can kind of know because the north and the south nodes operate in poles, which means they're opposite. Next is your aspect lines, as I was getting to. You have long lines, you have short lines, you have red lines, you have blue lines. So what does this mean? So your red lines are your harsh aspects. They are the negative aspects, so to say. They are the ones that are going to present you obstacles that you need to get over, to get through. Your blue lines represent positive aspects, the comfort. They don't really provide much obstacles or tension. So having too much of these blue lines can cause stagnant behavior, laziness. So having too much good is not a good thing. Having too much bad would not either be a good thing as well, because too much tension can make you stressed out and very manic. So it's best to have sort of a balance between. But each aspect, not every square or opposition is going to be necessarily bad. I will say that some Jupiter aspects that are opposing are actually quite good, especially if they're occurring within your ascendant-descendant polarity, because usually your descendant is sort of reflecting outward rather than it being inward. So as we can see the moon here, there's this long red line occurring with Saturn. This is the Saturn symbol. So this means that there's an opposition being formed. And the same thing is done with moon and the sun. When we look here, there is a shorter line. The shorter red line indicates a square that's happening between Venus and Jupiter. What does that mean is that Jupiter and Venus are kind of butting heads right at the same time. And this indicates that there is going to be somewhat of a tension between spending and consuming, which as we can kind of, piece that together, because Jupiter is, wherever Jupiter lies, it's always expanding on something. It's always overdoing something. She's doing too much. Venus relates to sort of our finances as well as our interest and what we consume. So that's how we make that connection. When it comes to oppositions, it's more so like one is being favored over the other. You can't really they're not butting heads in the sense of a square is doing. What it's doing is that it's pulling you apart, pulling you on both ends. You have Saturn pulling at you, and then you have the moon pulling at you, and you don't know what to do. And so you have, sort of like a little brief of a stagnant or kind of isolating yourself. So when it's occurring at the moon and the Saturn, you will find yourself emotionally blocking. You're not very well at expressing yourself because you're kind of caught in the middle. And so this can also indicate a lot of tension, because it's a strong aspect, a lot of tension with the mother, a lot of bad memories with the mother, because it's occurring at the moon, which is a very maternal figure in astrology, and then Saturn, which is a restriction, is causing a tension with something. In this case, it's a tension with the moon. So that's how we piece that together. And so yeah, that's how you kind of read. You have your main points here. So it's always occurring at an opposition. So ascendant, descendant, your midheaven, your unculi. So identity, partnerships, career, your reputation, your upbringing, and your family. It works as sort of like a life evolution cycle. So you come into the world as a Leo, you're doing all these things, and you get to sort of hear, this is how you've been grown, like your house situations, how you have grown up into the world, the values that have been placed on you. And then you get to sort of the marriage of, or multiple partnerships. You've got stability of communicating with multiple people, of forming connections and networks. Then you get here, your career, you're at the height of your life. And then the rest is sort of the impact that you make in the world and the mark that you leave, what you leave behind. And then so that's sort of how you conceptualize in terms of a life cycle. And then here is just, your table chart, listing things out for you in case that it's hard to read this. So that's why I like this website. The elements, fire, air, earth, water, cardinal, fixed, mutable. And this is how you see if you're water or air dominant. This person lacks air a lot, so they may find themselves very isolated, as well as water, so very unpredictable emotions are kind of streaming through them. but they are very grounded and organized, maybe too pragmatic, as well as passionate and very in your face. So very domineering person. And this is also, these are just the symbols for your aspects. These are opposition, conjunct, trine, triangle, that's how I remember that one. Square, obviously. And then sextiles are represented with a star or an asterisk. Yeah, so that's how you read a birth chart. I hope this was very informal, and thank you for supporting my work.